All right, so before we start this evening, I want to remember the life of Sister Jean Dolores Schmidt, who died on this past Thursday at the age of 106, a religious sister of the Sisters of Charity of the Blessed Virgin Mary, but more known as being the chaplain for the Loyola Ramblers men's basketball team since 1994 at Loyola University of Chicago until the summer of 2025. When her Ramblers made the run to the Final Four back in 2018, the 98-year-old, was not just a national star, but essentially the face of the tournament. It's what the tournament is really awesomely known about. Woman had her own bobblehead, for God's sakes. When Loyola made another run to the Sweet 16 in the round of 32 versus the one seed Illinois Fighting Illini in 2021, Sister Jean's words before the game included the following after asking for special help to overcome this team. She was 101 when this was made. We have a great opportunity to convert rebounds as this team makes 50% of their layups and 30% of its three-pointers. Our defense can take care of that. Chef's kiss. Rest in peace, Sister Jean. Words before we start, guys?
I mean, it kind of landed differently for me, considering like on the last show I posted that a link to that article about her, um, you know, uh, stepping down, retiring, and like barely, not even a month after she retires, she's gone. I mean, it's just, I know it landed differently after I posted that to kind of like to use the old phrase, the ink had barely dried, and then like here we are talking about her not being around. It just when you reach 106 and when you're the type of person she is, like it's not it's not reality, but like you think she's just one of those people who's always going to be there. It's just going to be really weird to forget about not having her at being a part of that community, just not being in the world at all. I mean, the world could use a few more Sister Jeans.
Anthony?
Yeah, and I definitely agree with both of you. And you pretty much personified what we loved about March Madness. It wasn't just
Yes.
about the basketball.
Yeah.
It's about the stories and the people that we eventually get introduced to. And you see Sister Jean, and it's just this tiny little school that just become a national story. This great tournament, and her celebrity status kind of took on a life of its own afterwards because of not just her love for the team, but the community itself and the fact that she was so well respected and the players and students loved her dearly. I mean, it just it's a really tough blow, not just for that community, but anyone who even read an article about Sister Jane or took in a game or even just use a Google search to see what was the
Right.
fuss about. I mean, yeah, it's really it's going to be really hard, even if the Ramblers do want to run to just she's not there physically. I mean, she's going to be there in spirit, but
Absolutely.
not to see that it's physically there. It's going to hit really hard.
Yeah.
I
Uh,
agree. Once again, I'm Steve Rabinowitz. That's Anthony Strait and Jay Kaplan. Let's get to the sports. This is the LCS on the Sports Lines edition. It is ON, as they say. We're at baseball's Final Four, now with 100% less New York teams than last year. We'll talk the senior and junior circuits league championship series. Also, football locals, as always, now with 100% more hope if you like blue. If you like green, stand through it, my friend. Stand through it. Show your love for the Jackson Dart era of football or your hatred of the Aaron Boone managerial era of baseball by subscribing to our Facebook and YouTube pages on the Sports Lines /. Jay may even respond to some of the Boone haters. Maybe not. The New York Yankees enjoyed World Series magic all the way to the end of October. This season, though, they're enjoying the magic of Cancun, now available only via JetBlue. The Yankees rock a 5-day stretch in what ended up being a 4-game series against Toronto, ended in a 5-2 loss on 5 days ago. Play New York, New York. Anyway, now as the Yankees lost their 3 games in this series by a total of 28-10, the quest for 28 start again on March 25th in San Francisco. The Yankees have now gone 16 seasons without holding up a World Series title. Jay, Anthony did it on the last show about his beloved Mets. Not as much ranting over here, but put the
No.
2025 season into perspective.
Yeah, 2025 had its peaks and valleys. The peak was the dominant first half, ownership of the AL East, and looking like Boone was correct that this was the best team he'd had as manager, and doing it without, Garrett Cole, who was out for the season, Giancarlo Stanton, who was out until June, but absolutely raked in July and August. The bullpen was a little shaky, Devin Williams in particular. Then came the post All-Star break valley. Yankees were 36 and 22 from opening day through the end of May, plus 94 run differential, 5.5 game lead in the East. At the actual midpoint of the season, 81 game mark, 47 and 34. So they ultimately had the same record in both halves of the season. But the lead had dropped to 1.5, and trouble was on its way. June and July were awful as the team went a combined 25 and 27. Only a plus 14 run differential in June, but an awful negative 13 in July, the only month with a negative run differential. They got thrashed by the Blue Jays. Foreboding, right? Who took over the AL East as the Yankees went from 7 up to 6.5 back, and calls for Boone's head got loud. The offense struggled. Even Aaron Judge had an up and down June. Max Fried had his annual blister issue, spent July and August looking nothing like the ace he'd been through June. Carlos Rodon had his bout with long ball itis in a rough July. Team righted its ship, though, once the calendar flipped to August and closed the season on a 34-19 run with a plus 55 run differential, looking more like the team who dominated the first 2 months, playing their best baseball down the stretch, finishing 94 and 68, tying the Jays for the East, and the best record in the junior circuit. But, losing the division on the season series tiebreaker, something that would turn out to be, to use the word again, more foreboding than we thought. Bounced the Red Sox in the AL wildcard series thanks to a record-setting performance by a rookie starter and Massachusetts native Cam Schlittler in Game 3, closing that one out before getting bounced by the Jays in the ALDS. Yankees really didn't play complimentary baseball in any of the 4 games, against Toronto. I'm not sure starting, I said this to you, I'm not sure starting Louis Heel in Game 1 was the right move, not with the way his velocity had dropped on his pitches compared to last year. And I think that after pulling him after 2 2/3, they should have used Will Warren as a piggyback instead of asking the bullpen to get 19 outs. But with the supposed advantage of, with Fried and Rodon starting games 2 and 3, the Yankees just needed to put their bats on the ball to be up 2-1 heading into Game 4. But both, of the Yankees' best starters had awful outings, and that pretty much spelled the end of the season. Look, overall, this team had a good season. Fried rebounded, going 5-0 in September. His 19 wins against just 5 losses led all of baseball. His 2.86 ERA and 1.101 WHIP are what the Yankees expected from an ace. Rodon finished the career high 18 wins against 9 losses. Solid 3.09 ERA, 1.049 WHIP, top 200 Ks for the second time. Will Warren took the ball every 5th day and was a serviceable back end of the rotation starter with some swing and miss ability, averaging 9.5 strikeouts per 9. Schlittler joined the Clark Schmidt and Warren, and joined with the injured Clark Schmidt and Warren as the latest success stories from the Yankees' homegrown pitcher development program. Kid went 4-3, 2.96 ERA, 10.4 strikeouts per 9 and 14 starts after coming up in July. Yeah, Williams struggled all season, but he was better late. Luke Weaver struggled as well, though likely due to thinking too much about not tipping his pitches as opposed to just pitching his pitches. Tim Hill was a pleasant surprise, as was Fernando Cruz, whose energy level was as high as his 36% strikeout rate. David Bednar was the only one of the 3 trade deadline bullpen acquisitions who actually worked out as expected. And the Yankees may have finally have the right guy for the 9th inning. And as a Steelers fan, I love that the Pittsburgh area native and fellow lover of the black and gold enters the game to renegade. Aaron Judge was Aaron Judge. Another ridiculous, MVP level regular season was finally capped by a postseason where Superman did not turn back into Clark Kent when the calendar flipped to October, slashing 500, 581, 692 for a 1.273 OPS. Stanton played what amounted to half a season, 77 games, and still slashed 273, 350, 594 for a 944 OPS. He had 24 homers and 66 RBIs in those 74 games. 36 runs scored, weighted runs created plus 158, second only to Judge. Jazz Chisholm put up a 30-30 season despite missing the entire month of May. Trent Grisham had a career year, 34 homers, 70 RBI in his walk year. First base is in good hands for the future with Ben Rice. Two more trade deadline acquisitions. Ryan McMahon with his Golden Glove work at third. Jose Caballeros with his positional versatility and base stealing ability gave the Yankees a boost. And then there was the guy I talked up coming into the season and at the midseason mark, Cody Bellinger. How? Pay that man. Keep him here. I know I've gone on a bit, and I thank you for bearing with me. Let me close with this. Some of the folks who called the big ball yard in the South Bronx home in 2025 will not do so in 2026, either because they didn't do the job or despite the fact that they did. Aaron Boone and Brian Cashman do not belong in that group, despite what an entitled portion of the fan base who grew up spoiled by Joe Torre and the core four may think and say. Cash did everything he could to give Boone the best roster possible, and Boone did everything he could to lead the team through a peak and valley, not to mention injury-filled season. Yes, the Yankees didn't meet the annual expectation of bringing home World Series title number 28, but at the end of the day, Cashman and Boone didn't fail the Yankees failed Cashman and Boone. Pitchers and catchers report in 4 months, folks. Try not to be angry every day until then.
They're going to be angry regardless. I don't think it's going to ever happen.
No, but I gotta try.
I do think this, though. I think one thing that is for sure, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but considering the Mets did not fire Carlos Mendoza, although Anthony had tried many of times, the Phillies didn't fire Rob Thompson after playoff disappointment. So it is seeming like more and more the management is like, it's not the manager's fault, it's the player's fault. But you can't fire the players, so you got to be creative when it comes to it. All right. Jay just mentioned it. You basically said pay the man, Hal. So Cody Bellinger, just like Pete Alonso last show, is our player to watch going into the offseason, Anthony. Should they pay the man?
Well, I don't see why you should not pay the man. I mean, the guy only did was be the absolute answer to losing Juan Soho and provided a lot of run support and obviously some power in the lineup that a lot of people had questions what was going to happen after we got past Aaron Judge in that lineup. But Cody Bellinger for his 2025 campaign, 272, 29 home runs, 813 OPS, and 152 games in 2025. One of the things too that made him so clutch was his ability to hit left-handed hitters, even as a lefty. His 415 on base percentage, his slugging percentage, 601, actually led all left-handed hitters in the majors in those two categories. He played all three outfield positions at various points of the season. His 4.9 wins above replacement was tied with Kyle Schwarber of the Philadelphia Phillies for 18th in the majors, second on the Yankees behind Aaron Judge.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of the fact, he accumulated 7 outs above average, 8 defensive runs saved for 23 outfield positions, and first base respectively. So when you think about his power numbers and his versatility to play multiple positions, you gotta believe that's going to command a decent payday at the end of the day. He had a 3-year, $80 million deal that he signed with the Cubs that obviously had an opt-out clause in year 2. This is the year 2 that he's opting out, and obviously I believe if you look at the outfield market, and I'll take 2 examples of obviously a guy I'm gonna talk about later on, and George Springer, but also Brandon Nimmo. You know, look at Nimmo's numbers. He signed an 8-year, 162 million dollar contract. The Mets, Springer's 6-year, 150 deal with the Blue Jays. You gotta figure that Bellinger is gonna command maybe 180, 190 around that range because of his versatility and his ability to hit. The question with that is he's going to be 30, and we all know about these long-term contracts after 30, and there's always some red flags there. On top of the fact that you do have a couple of young guys in Jason Dominguez and Spencer Jones that you might have to figure out what to do with them as well for the long-term solution. But as far as Cody Bellinger, I don't see why you should this man walk. I mean, he basically can't. He was a plan B for a Yankee team that needed an answer for losing Juan Soho, and he provided that answer and then some. In the postseason, pretty much his postseason career in 70 games, 50 to 57 hits. Didn't do a whole lot in this postseason run as far as his hitting, his fielding as well. But then again, I mean, you just the division series. I mean, this Yankee team just played as much uneven baseball as we see them do all season. When they got the good pitching, the bats did show up. When they didn't get the pitching, the bats did show up. We saw at the end of game two, when they did mount somewhat of a rally. But yeah, they should absolutely pay this man. Figure out a way to keep him in the Bronx, just because of what he did to the team. Obviously, he's a locker room guy. He fits in well with the clubhouse. I don't see why not. I mean, I would say, Cashman, unless something drastic happens. By the way, Scott Boras is his agent, so
Yep.
that's so you got to keep that in mind. And so is that question mark there. But yeah, I do think I do see. I don't see why Brian Cashman would be reluctant to bring him back with the right price, the right amount of years. And obviously, if you're a Yankee fan, you'd like to see him stick around a little longer.
Amen.
Hear like cash register signs immediately as when Scott Boras gets mentioned out there because
Mhm.
you hate him, but
It's like
he always gets the
yeah,
most for his
yeah.
clients.
Well, it's like negotiating with Scrooge McDuck and Fred Hart Grongold at the same time. You want the goodness of Scrooge McDuck, but you get the greed of Grongold, and you just don't know which side's going to show up on any given negotiation.
Bravo, Anthony. Leave it to Anthony to add two animated characters to talk about Scott Boras. Okay. The offseason, I'm going to talk about two big things. Shortstop is obviously, I think, one of the most glaring only because of the struggles of Anthony Volpe. Let's just mention now, Volpe 24, partially torn labrum this year, but his production was awful. That's not being on it. That's not being opinionated. It's true. His slash line 212, 272, 391, 19 home runs, 72 RBIs. But in the postseason, it was magnified even more. The worst strikeout rate of any qualified hitter, 61.5%. Not good. And you have to mention the defense from this past year, -7 outs above average. And this is a cornerstone outfielder, and that's a problem. So what do the Yankees do with shortstop? Option A is go for one of the most productive shortstops out there, Bo Bichette of the Toronto Blue Jays. Injury history could be not great at the position, though. The defense was terrible and still is terrible. So the question is, do they stay in-house? Do they keep Volpe, first of all, or do they stay in-house and hand the reins to Jose Caballero? Now, he may not have been the Yankees' planted shortstop when he arrived from Tampa Bay, literally from the other clubhouse to that clubhouse
During
during
a
a
rain
trade in
delay.
between games. Actually, no, during a rain delay, that's right. But his performance made it possible to ignore him. 40 games with the Yankees, 266, 372, 456 slash line, 3 home runs, 9 RBIs, 15 stolen bases. That's pretty good considering, again, this was a pretty much utility move. His defensive value and speed, even then, just give him a strong case to start, even if it's at the 9 hole. A 976 fielding percentage, 4 defensive runs saved, 5 outs above average, and he only played 339 innings at shortstop. That is not a lot. That's not even like a quarter of the season when you think about it. Great on the bases. He had the most stolen bases in the majors. Again, he had 15 when he was with the Yankees. If you could take 75% of that production while maintaining a steady defense, it might be best for Caballero to start and for Volpe and really the Yankees to have a divorce and for Volpe to get a new just set of eyes on him, a new hitting coach and someone that'll help him with his swing more than the Yankees have over the last 3 years. Now the bullpen. A factor in the team's failure to win the division, not the primary culprit in their postseason exit. Let's just say that. The front office in the middle of the season traded for David Bednar, Camilo Duvall, Jake Bird. You had Devin Williams and Fernando Cruz. The only people who are going to be still in that group who were signed for next year and above is Bednar, Doval, and Cruz. Bednar is going to be the closers, as Jay mentioned. He had a very good run, probably the only good run of anybody who got traded here for either New York team in the second half of the season. Duvall was an all-star with the Giants in 2023, but he was very good late in the year. Good in the playoffs in his last 6 regular season appearances. They were scoreless. So now let's look at everybody else real quick. Devin Williams has become a free agent. And if this was done 2 months ago, the answer would be no, 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 hell no. But in the end of the season, he really became the second most reliable guy in the bullpen, 3.2 scoreless innings in the playoffs. He did give up the game-winning single that ended the season, but none of this really in the end was on Devin Williams. But his lows may make him, and his price tag might make him too much to stay.
And the fact that he may not want to be a setup man. Maybe, that's another thing. It's his role. If he feels like he can be a closer elsewhere, somebody's willing to pay him to be a closer elsewhere. That's going to be a factor.
Okay, let's finish this off here with the other sets of them. Luke Weaver is not going to be back here. They picked up his option last year because of the role that he had during the postseason, which was good, but couldn't get it out in the playoffs. No, literally, he couldn't get it out in the playoffs. And so he will be looking for a raise. And he might follow more in the Clay Holmes mold and try to get himself back in the starters round. We don't know yet, but that could be a decision. Paul Blackburn and Ryan Yarborough, goodbye. Jonathan Loaiza, $5 million option is going to be declined. Tim Hill has a $3 million option that should be picked up just because of the fact that you need these arms in the bullpen. And we'll see what happens. These are small things. I honestly think there's other small issues, but I think these two are the most pressing at the present time. But I think when we get down to it, we're going to see a lot of different things pop up during the offseason. It's not a great free agent crop. There might be some moves that are made on the trade market. We don't know. Baseball's offseasons become a lot more unpredictable, especially since it can go into spring training. We'll see what happens, but it looks like the Yankees are at least set up. We know the rotation is set up for a while, especially with how Cam Schlittler ended the year, Will Warren, you have Heel, you have the return of Garrett Cole. That is set. And then you have the star hitter, and now you got to see what the rest of the lineup is going to look like. There are little things that need to be fixed for the Yankees, but if they get fixed, they could be right back where they are next year, just a little bit better.
Yeah, Rabbi, the under the radar decision that I'm going to be watching is Wither Trent Grisham.
Yeah, and that has there's a lot to do with that too. We'll see how that goes on. Let's move on to the ALCS, and let's go back to 1977. The top grossing movie was Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope. The top song was Tonight's the Night by Fleetwood Mac. Jay was of a certain age. I'm not going to do math because,
It's okay.
I don't want to have an abacus. And both the Seattle Mariners and Toronto Blue Jays entered Major League Baseball. Now, almost 50 years later, I did that math correctly, they meet in the 2025 American League Championship Series. 2-0 Mariners right now, going back to the city of Kraken, Space Needle, whatever, on Wednesday night. Both of my cohorts are going to look at a player who needed to step up before the series began. They'll provide an update or two. Let's have some fun. Anthony, the Blue Jays are looking for their first World Series in 32 years. Touch them all, Joe. But who didn't touch them all against the Yankees and has needed to step up now against the Mariners?
Well, 2 days before I start. Number one, can I get Exhibition Field and the Kingdom back if you're gonna have this kind of a throwback series?
No, you can't.
No, you can't.
No, Exhibition Field. You can get the Kingdom back.
And honestly, Anthony, you don't really want them.
And as a Yankee fan,
not as much as you think you do.
Hold on. And as a Yankee fan who had to see that fateful, horrible day of Game 5 against the Mariners on replay on Friday night, watching the Mariners Game 5, the Kingdom can stay demolished.
Yes, without a doubt.
That's number one. Number two, Joe Davis proved tonight you can't do play-by-play and carve a turkey live on national television.
It's Thanksgiving. It's Canadian Thanksgiving.
It is.
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving, Canada. But yes, but the guy I'm looking at now, the guy who needs to step up is George Springer. And coincidentally, it was going back and forth the group chat. Springer homered in Game 1 on the very first pitch he saw. And unfortunately for the Blue Jays, it said that was the only run they scored the rest of the night. Has Seattle pitching has just been unbelievable in this series. But Springer did not have a good coming off a great regular season when he bat 309 had 309 average, 399 on base percentage, 560 slugging percentage, 9.59 OPS in 140 games to go at 32 home runs and 84 runs RBIs and 106 runs scored. Against the Yankees, however, he was just 3 for 17, 1 home run, 5 strikeouts in the division series. Now, now obviously, he is such a big part of the Blue Jays lineup and success because he is the leadoff guy. He is the DH, and if you look at the DH matchup on paper, you would think this was one of those matchups that would favor the Blue Jays more than anything going into the series. And Jay, I got to give you credit for this because you mentioned his past history with the Houston Astros, and unfortunately, I know Yankee fans, if you're watching, and my co-hosts who are Yankee fans too, I hate to bring up bad memories, but yes, George Springer made a history of being a bit of a Yankee killer. He didn't do it this year, but against the Astros, but with the Astros, his playoff slash time was 280, 363, 555 with 980 OPS, 19 home runs, 45 RBIs, 63 postseason games with the Astros, including a home run streak where he hit home runs in 5 consecutive postseason games in 2018. That is the George Springer the Toronto Blue Jays would love to have right now. And they probably could use them. They're going back to the Pacific Northwest down 0-2. And this whole lineup, for the most part, has been kind of shut down a little bit. I mean, we talked about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. having a big division series, and the lineup up and down have just kind of been bottled up. I mean, tonight the Mariners pitching did the job. They did it again in game one. And you gotta be honest. I mean, the Toronto is really had their back to the wall. But if they're gonna get the comeback started, it's gonna have to be George Springer. He's got to be the guy, and that's the job you have when you are the leadoff guy. You are the trend. You are the tone setter right now, and it's not the fact that he's not hitting the home run, he's not having the power numbers, he's not getting on base. And that's just part of the problem too, as far as this Blue Jays lineup through the first 2 games of the league championship series. If they're gonna make a comeback, he has to find a way to get on base, whether it's drawing a walk, whether it's getting a single or getting a hit, something. But he's gonna have to do more. And that's just the rest of the lineup as a whole. I mean, when you're down 0-2, whatever strategy you had in the first 2 games, you throw it out the window. You take the off day, and you just try to mentally reset and configure from there. But yeah, George Springer is a guy I'm looking at because of what he can do for the Blue Jays, but what he's done in the past. And I get it, he's older now, but yeah, they definitely want to need him to step it up.
Yeah, and there are a lot of Yankee killers out there, but Springer's postseason track record with the Astros, this is his real first postseason not with the Astros, is very well known. And if he doesn't get it together, their series ends in
Oh yeah,
Seattle probably
and
over
keep
the
this in
next three days.
and keep this in mind. He was a big target for the Mets in the offseason a number of times.
Yep, absolutely. Jay,
Mhm.
let's go to Seattle. Uh, they win 2 more games. They make their first ever Fall Classic bid ever. But who needed to step up from a bad DS, and how are they doing right now?
I went with Randy Rosarena, their leadoff hitter and left fielder. In his first full season in Seattle, the former Tampa Bay Ray got his second All-Star nod, set a career highs in games, 160, plate appearances and at bats, 709, 613, homers with 27, tied his career high in total bases with 261 and runs scored with 95. He added 31 steals and 76 RBI to go with a 238, 334, 426 slash line for a 760 OPS and a weighted runs created plus of 120. Solid season overall, but very much a tale of two halves. In 94 first half games, over 412 plate appearances and 350 at bats, he slashed 251, 357, 463. It's an 820 OPS, 17 homers, 48 RBI, 16 steals, 53 runs scored, and a weighted runs created plus of 136. In 66 second half games, his numbers dropped across the board. Over 297 plate appearances and 263 at bats, his slash line dropped to 221, 303, 376. That's a 679 OPS. 10 homers, 28 RBI, 15 steals, 42 runs scored, and a weighted runs created plus of just 97. And that second half slump carried over to the ALDS against Detroit as Rosarena slashed just 174, 269, 217. That's a 487 OPS. He had one extra base hit, a double in the 8-4 Game 3 win, one steal and one RBI in the series. And outside of that game 3, where he went 2 for 5 with a double and his only RBI, he was just 2 of 18, including an 0 for 5 with 2 hit by pitches in the 15-inning game 5 series clincher. That's not going to get it done in the ALCS. Rosarena was pretty solid, was a pretty solid postseason performer during his time in Tampa Bay. In 28 games, over 123 plate appearances and 109 at bats. He had a slash line of 349, 423, 716. That's a 1138 OPS, 11 homers, 17 RBI, 23 runs scored, 17 extra base hits, and 78 total bases. Now, granted, most of that is from the 2020 postseason where he went full playoff Randy, leading the Rays to a 6-game World Series win over the Dodgers by putting up a ridiculous 377, 442, 831 slash line. It's a 1.273 OPS, 10 homers, 14 RBI, 19 runs scored, 14 extra base, and 64 total bases in 20 postseason games across 86 plate appearances and 77 at-bats, and winning ALCS MVP along the way. Now, the Mariners would love to get full playoff Randy, as that version of their left fielder would go a long way to helping them get past the Blue Jays. I wrote all this before they went up 2-0. Though considering the rough ALDS he just had, I think Seattle would settle for the 2021-23 version, who was just solid playoff Randy. In 8 games, across 37 plate appearances and 32 at-bats, 281, 378, 438 slash line, 816 OPS, a homer, 3 RBI, 2 steals, 4 runs scored, 3 extra base hits, and 14 total bases. Bottom line, the case could be made that a pretty large part of the reason why the Mariners traded for Rosarena was his October resume. He didn't add to it against the Tigers, but if the World Series is going to be played in the shadow of the Space Needle for the first time in history, Randy Rosarena is going to have to play more like the Tampa Bay postseason section of the back of his baseball card. Now, his bat was still missing in the Mariners game 1 win, where they won 3-1, but his glove and his leg showed up, took away an extra base hit with a sliding catch to end the bottom of the 7th, led off the top of the 8th with a walk, promptly stole 2nd and 3rd, and came home on Jorge Polanco's single for the 3rd and final run of the night. That bat made a limited appearance in the M's 10-3 win tonight in Game 2, 1 for 4, and with a single, but he did have a hat trick for strikeout hat trick. His legs did a little better. He scored twice. But overall, slow start to the ALCS to be sure, but maybe going back to the Pacific Northwest will unlock the full version of playoff Randy.
Jay, what do you say your stars need to be like stars in the postseason? Well,
Sir.
time for me to do the easy thing and focus on the stars as the key to this series, and that is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. versus Cal
Indeed.
Raleigh.
Yep.
Cal Raleigh may be one of the best, most valuable players of the regular season, but Aaron Judge will win that award. I'll tell you that now. I'm on your side now. But Vladimir Guerrero Jr. had been at least the most valuable player of the ALDS, really any DS, to be completely honest with you. And it was because of a few things. Mostly because of the fact that he killed the Yankees in all of this series. And he did it every single way. Look at this.
The man has a vendetta.
He did, and unfortunately, him enjoying the Yankees lose chant with David Ortiz probably made sure that he would never, ever actually be in the graces of the Yankees. By the way, Vlad, you're playing a new opponent now. Don't show that little thing in your little video package before Game 1, because now you're down 0-2. See? Anyway, most of the damage in the division series did come against fastballs. He had 13 plate appearances against fastballs. He had 7 of his 9 hits against that, including a grand slam in Game 2. Guerrero had 3 hits against 4 seamers, 1 against a sinker, and went 3 for 3 against cutters. And again, he crushes fastballs. Plus 27 run value against fastballs, 7 best in the majors this year, 530 slugging percentage against fastballs. But oh yeah, he also hit 2 of his 3 home runs against changeups. 1 against Luis Gil in his first appearance of the series, and another against Carlos Rodon in Game 3 at Yankee Stadium. Now, the Mariners are a big fastball team. That's the 4th highest fastball rate in the majors at 59.5%. But it's been working so far, what they've done against Vladimir Guerrero Jr. In this series, he has had no hits in his 7 at-bats with just 1 walk. It's been a little bit of a different sign. Vlad, again, as I mentioned in the last show, was a little bit topsy turvy this year. He didn't play at his MVP pace, even though he just got paid big time during the season with a $500 million contract. But now going back to Seattle, not necessarily in Pitchers Park, we'll see what Vlad can do to at least match what he did in the DS and the CS. Let's talk about big dumper Cal Raleigh on the other side. He was pretty good in the LCS. You saw him just throw out someone in the 12th inning of that great game 5 on Friday. And in this series, he has been pretty good considering the fact that he's 10 for 25 right now in the postseason. As of yesterday, rest of the Mariners are 35 from 193, and he's also caught every inning of every game, and that is he only had the third most innings behind the plate this season, which just shows amazingly what the man does. And last night, crushed the sixth inning over against Kevin Gossman. Gossman had retired 15 straight batters, but the Mariners got their first run, tied the score. We know what happened after that. Made an extended mound visit to help his pitcher in a 27 first pitch inning. That included that first pitch home run we mentioned earlier with George Springer, and then caught scoreless innings from 3 different relievers at the end of it, including the postseason. Raleigh is against Gossman yesterday was 8 for 17, 471. At Rogers Center before today, he was 17 for 54, 9 homers, and 19 RBIs. That's 315 average. What Vlad does with his bat and what Cal does with, everything is the key to this series. Right now, Cal is winning. He didn't have a great, let's see what he did in game 2. He had give me a moment, no hits on 3 at-bats, but he had 2 walks. So the presence of Cal Raleigh is there. And Cal Raleigh right now is winning the battle of starts between him and Vladdy, and 2 more wins. And Cal Raleigh is going to be the head of a World Series Mariners team, something that we have never said in the history of that franchise. All right. The NLCS has entered the chat as we see the Los Angeles Dodgers, who began this season with high expectations of being the heavy favorites to get themselves to back-to-back World Series, and the Milwaukee Brewers with much lower expectations. Remember when they started their season with the 3-game sweep at Yankee Stadium, and the one thing that Trevor McGill was talking about was those unfair torpedo bats? Months was a long, long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
Anthony, you get the defending champs. I know you have a little soft spot for Philly from time to time because of family roots, but they did kick out Philly in the LDS, but they still have some people who need to step up after this series, and one of them did exactly that tonight.
Yeah, you're talking about answering the bell. Freddie Freeman tonight in game 2 hit a moonshot that second took forever to come down and clear the right field wall, but gave the Dodgers a 1-0 lead. This is game, obviously after game on the background, Dodgers bases loaded with 1 out in the top of the 9th inning. Okay. But yeah, in the division series, he didn't play. He obviously did not do it with the bat. He did, however, do it with his glove. If you saw the end of was it game 3 with the at the end of the game where he had to basically catch the was like an error throw to end the game at first base. So he has done it with his glove. But the bat, 3 for 15 with an on base percent of a 294, and one of those hits was a key double in game 2, obviously. But they want the Freddie Freeman that we saw last year in that postseason run that got them to the World Series, and obviously, I hate to do this, Yankee fans, but yes,
no, you don't. No, you don't. Stop it.
Stop it. We know you don't.
Look, I just suffered 2 weeks of Yankee fans destroying my team, and I've been very nice because I cannot stick up for my team. But I hate to kick anyone when they're down. And right now, yes, Yankee fans are down. I hate to kick anyone and when they're down. It's just so rude. But anyway, yes, last year he had a 24 the postseason run he had. He had 4 home runs in the World Series, the walk-off grand slam. In the postseason, he had 250 batting average with the 4 home runs and the 13 RBIs. and 13 hits in 13 games. The regular season, though, he did have an up and down regular season. 24 home runs, 30 RBIs. Did have a bit of a mini slump halfway through the season, where by his own words, and let me find this quote, he said that. Let me just find it. I just had it for a moment. Yes, he said that his swing was feeling in Arizona. Now, look, I have family ties from the South, and I've never heard that said before in my life under any circumstances, let alone for baseball purposes. But it seemed like it might have been something. Speaking of Freeman's a bat now as we speak, he's two for four tonight with the home run. But yes, if the Dodgers are going to repeat or at least get back to the World Series and get through this series, Freddie Freeman's got to be the kind of catalyst. Now, think about this: the Dodgers just won a series. Freeman underperformed. Mookie Betts did not hit. Otani was what 1 for 19 with 10 strikeouts, and the Dodgers still managed to win a series in 4 games. This tells you how good this Dodger team and how deep they are. That their best players can underperform and they still win. And hold on just 1 second. Okay, he just flied out to end the inning. But yes, Freddie Freeman, obviously, big hit tonight. They're going to need something like that the rest of the series if they want to move on and get back to the World Series and give themselves opportunity to repeat for the first time. Rabbi, what's the last team to repeat as champions? It was the Yankees, am I correct?
Believe it was the Yankees in 99 and
99,
2000.
2000, respectively. Yeah.
All right. So, JF, you've looked tonight. The Brewers have 1 hit, which I'll talk about in just a second. But with that being said, going back to the Cubs series, who needed to step up from that series into this series.
Yeah, and then the guy went with his second baseman Bryce Terang. I said on our LDS preview last week that second baseman Bryce Terang was one of the Brewers who had a breakthrough season in 2025 and a season with career highs in slash line 288, 359, 435, OPS 794, weighted runs created plus 124, homers 18, RBI 81, extra base hits 48, total bases 254. Runs scored 97 to go with 24 steals. Those last two numbers led the team. Definitely qualifies as a breakout season, especially when you consider that in his two previous big league seasons, he averaged a 239, 303, 328 slash line. That's just a 631 OPS with just 6 homers. He averaged just 6 homers, 45 and a half RBI, 59 runs scored, 38 steals, and a weighted runs created plus of 75. That would put him 25% below the average major league hitter. He was a big reason the Brewers won 97 games, had the best record in all of Major League Baseball, and he came into October on fire. Over the last 2 months of the season, in 52 games across 218 plate appearances and 193 at bats, Terang put up a 321, 399, 580 slash line. It's a 979 OPS, a 172 weighted runs created plus. 12 homers, 37 RBI, 35 runs scored, 24 extra base hits, and 112 total bases. And then the calendar flipped, and it was if Terang left his bat back in September. He went just 3 for 20 in the National League Division Series. That equates to a 150, 190, 350 slash line. That's just a 540 OPS, a weighted runs created of 45. That's 55% worse than the average major league hitter. He started and ended the series just fine, going 2 for 5 with a single, a double, a run scored, and an RBI in the 9-3 game 1 win. And then 1 for 4 with a solo homer in the 3-1 series clincher. But he was very much missing in action in the middle 3 games, going 0 for 11 with just 1 walk as his only offensive contribution. That's not going to get it done against a deep, talented Dodgers team that can flip the switch in the postseason better than any of the remaining 4 teams. On paper, the Dodgers have exponentially more individual talent than the Brewers, not to mention $200 million more in salary. So the David versus Goliath narrative is legitimate, especially on offense, as the Dodgers led the National League and were second in all of Major League Baseball in homers with 244, while the Brewers were ninth in the National League and 22nd in all of baseball with just 166. The MLB average per team was 188. And as I noted on the last show, teams that hit more home runs win more than 80% of the time. The team with more homers in the game has won over. The team with more home runs in the game has won over the last more than 40, has won over the last five postseasons, and more than 40% of runs scored have come via the long ball over the last few Octobers. Milwaukee's offense typically scores its runs by grinding out plate appearances, putting balls in play, and taking more extra bases on hits or by steals than any other team. That approach can and did work over the course of the marathon that is the 162 game regular season. The Brewers swept the season series against LA 6-0, and the 9 steals they had were a big reason why. But in the short sample size that is a postseason series, it can leave their lineup at the mercy of batted ball luck. The NLDS clincher against the Cubs was a perfect example. The Brewers put 22 balls in play. Only 3 resulted in hits, and none came around to score. They had to put 3 others out of the yard, all on solo homers with 2 outs, in order to knock off the Cubs and advance to the National League Championship Series. That final solo shot was the one by Bryce Terang. Now, more big hits in big situations from their second baseman are going to be key if Milwaukee is to reach the World Series for the first time since 1982, back when the Harvey Wallbangers edition of the Brew Crew were in the American League. Terang is off to an inauspicious start in this series, to be sure. He's 0 for 3 tonight with 1 K, with 1 strikeout, as Milwaukee is 2 outs away from losing Game 1.
With a man on and down 2 runs, so we'll see what happens there. They might be done after I'm talking about the way that these teams are going to close out games. Now, the Brewers have used a lot of pitchers in this series. They pretty much averaged in this series versus the Cubs 5 to 6 pitchers a game, including tonight. They've used 6 players on the way. The biggest one being Quinn Priester, who went 4 innings in the middle. But they are very easily happy to go to that bullpen. They used pretty much that whole bullpen on Saturday night, starting with All-Star closer Trevor McGill and just going through. But the interesting thing is the use of Jacob Misiorowski, by the way, in this series, not the closer, but he's been really related to a good setup guy. And on Saturday night, he got 4 innings of work after Seiya Suzuki hit a home run on him on the first at bat. No one did anything after that. And that's going to be the key, because the Brewers are very happy to go to their bullpen as long as they have the lead. And McGill, Misiorowski, you got Ashby in there, you got Abner Uribe, combined to toss 9 innings in that Game 5 victory, 1 run, 1 walk, 8 batters struck out. So you're probably not going to see the starters go very closely into games. The Dodgers, however, have a former starter that closes their games right now in one of the biggest weapons that you can almost ever have in Roki Sasaki. 3 relief outings by WPA. One of the 3 biggest relief outings in the history of Dodger postseason baseball in Game 4 of the clinching series versus the Phillies. The error might be the biggest thing that people remember, but people should remember also the fact that he threw 3 perfect innings in relief in that game. The level to which Roki Sasaki is pitching right now is essential for the Dodgers bullpen, because they only literally trust one other guy, and that's Alex Vesia. Had a great year in 2025, striking out 80 batters, a whip under 1 for the second straight campaign, and back to last season's playoffs. Currently, the left-hander has allowed 1 run in 12 appearances. Now, Sasaki, 5 1/3 innings this postseason, 10 innings of relief work in his professional life. In the 15 relief innings Sasaki has thrown, the Dodgers bullpen has allowed, the 15 innings that Sasaki hasn't thrown this postseason, the Dodgers have allowed 13 earned runs. So, as the de facto closer now, tonight, Sasaki is in currently, was the bottom of the night with 1 out. Looking back, it's still that way. There's a man on first, but
second and third now.
Bowers
just hit a ground rule double off the center field wall above the yellow mark. So second and third, 1 out. First time Sasaki's actually really been touched this postseason.
Yeah, and the fact that Blake Snell pitched 8 innings, I'm a little surprised they had enough confidence to go to Sasaki. Maybe that won't work tonight. But the question really, again, is how do you close the games? The Brewers will go by committee, and will throw all the people they have. But for the Dodgers, they got 6 innings out of Tyler Glass now in this series. They got 6 innings out of Shohei Ohtani in this series. They got 6 innings out of Snell in the previous game of this series and 8 innings tonight. So they are relying on the starters and then hope and pray when you get to the bullpen. We'll see what happens, and I have a feeling the Brewers we'll see what happens. It'll be very interesting on the way that ends, but y'all got to talk about football now. Sorry about that. Sometimes the best things come unexpectedly. And last Thursday, the unexpected surely happened in Giants Stadium as the Giants defeated the Eagles 34-17, giving the Eagles 2 straight losses. That's something the reigning Super Bowl champions didn't do at all in 2024. Jackson Dart had his best game as a pro and made 100% of New York and New Jersey pretty much have their heart in their throats when he was in the blue medical tent in the second half. Hi, Brian Daboll. Get the hell out of the blue medical tent.
You too, Cam.
You too, Cam, but mostly, probably you too. All right. Anyway, a trip to Denver awaits on Sunday. Jay, your offensive takeaway isn't Jackson Dart, who played his best game as a pro, but is certainly a man that is not actually unexpected in any way, shape, or form. He will come at you like no one else.
Yeah, that's Cam Scatterbo, and Dart wasn't bad either. I think I said to you over text, Rabbi, that like the way I was going to frame this angle is Scatterbo, mama, there goes that man, and I feel like invoking one of NBA great Mark Jackson's signature lines to describe what we saw from the Giants rookie running back in the 34-7 tween over the defending Super Bowl champs felt appropriate, especially in the fourth quarter where he was flat out mauling the Eagles defense en route to putting up 98 yards on 19 carries, a 5.2 average, and 3 TDs on the ground, adding 2 catches for 12 yards through the air, giving him his second consecutive game with over 100 yards from scrimmage. Scatterbo is now only the second rookie running back in Giants history to rush for 3 touchdowns in a game, joining Charlie Evans, who did it back in 1971. Now, I talked on our September 25th show about Scatterbo having games like this last year as a senior at Arizona State, and that it was a big reason why he was drafted, and that his ability to do so at the NFL level would make him a quarterback's best friend. But I found it hilarious to have Rabbi angrily text me during Thursday Night Football using words I seem to say on every NFL draft show in regards to players like Scatterbo. I have to quote you here, partner. What you said was, when the fuck are people going to stop with the vitals 40 times another bullshit, watch tape, and then realize if a running back runs like that in college, there's a decent shot he runs like that in the pros. 4th round pick, thanks NFL, we'll take him. It was just priceless, Rabbi. I had to use it. Scatterbo is proving Rabbi correct on all counts. The counting stats. His 5 rushing touchdowns are tied with Buffalo's James Cook and Dallas's Javonte Williams for second. His 338 rushing yards are 10th. His 155 receiving yards are 5th. The next gen stats per Summer Sports. His yards after contact are 9th. His success rate is 12th. His first down percentage is 3rd. His target share is 10th. The eye test. Scatterbo had 5 of his 19 carries and 44 of his 98 rushing yards, with 3 of them going for 10 plus, on the Giants' final 12-play drive, which led the last 6 minutes and 57 seconds off the clock to secure the win. As for his fellow rookie, Jackson Dart, his 3rd NFL start was definitely better than his 2nd, and while the bar for improvement was low after the debacle in New Orleans, the Giants quarterback was demonstrably more efficient running the offense. He was quick with his release and accurate with his throws. And the Giants converted 11 of 16 on 3rd down, 68.8%, with Dart accounting for all 11 on 15 of the 16 3rd down plays. And they scored touchdowns on all 3 of their red zone trips. And Dart did it without Malik Neighbors, who's out for the season with a torn ACL, and Darius Slayton not being available due to a hamstring injury. Overall, Dart 17 of 25, 68% completion, 195 yards, 7.8 per attempt, 1 touchdown, no picks, a 104.6 passer rating. He added 10 carries for 60 yards, not counting kneel downs, highlighted by a 19-yard touchdown on the opening drive. He's led the offense to touchdowns on the opening possession in each of his 3 starts. Prior to that, the Giants had scored a touchdown on the opening drive just 4 times in the previous 54 games under Brian Daboll. With Mike Kafka once again borrowing plays and concepts from the Ole Miss offense to keep his rookie quarterback comfortable, Dart was able to make the type of plays with both his arm and his legs that he's quickly getting a reputation for. The touchdown run. Giants had a 3rd and 8 at the Eagles' 20. Philly's pass rush blew up the pocket, one of the rare times they did, as Dart's faced pressure on just 12.5% of his dropbacks. But Dart stepped up, avoided the pressure, leaving him with just all-pro linebacker Zach Bond in front of him. Dart faked him out of his cleats and went untouched into the end zone. On the following drive, he used his legs and his arm. On a 3rd and 13 from the Eagles' 35, he stepped up in the pocket, kept his eyes downfield, escaping pressure from the muddy left side by rolling right and firing a frozen rope down the sideline to wide receiver Wan'Dale Robinson, who broke a tackle and took it 35 yards for the score. Philly scored 14 straight points after that, take a 17-3 lead with under 7 minutes left in the first half, but Scatterbo took it from there, scoring 21 unanswered points of his own to secure the win. And honestly, guys, the BFF thing between Dart and Scatterbo, I mean, I teased it up at the top, but it does seem to be real. Their lockers are next to each other and their spots are near each other in the stretching lines. And any doubt, I think, was erased by their combined post-game interview on the Thursday Night Football set. I think that one will go down in Giants history. They have given this organization and fan base something it has not had since another Ole Miss product was under center: hope.
Yeah, and 2 things about Jackson Dart. One, first quarterback, obviously, I think you know the stat, but only 3 rookie quarterbacks have ever rushed for 50 yards. And only 3 quarterbacks have ever rushed for 50 yards in their first 3 starts. You know the other 2. Hurts and Lamar Jackson. Some big names there. And the only quarterback in the last 20 years as a rookie to beat the defending Super Bowl champions in prime time. The only other one, Robert Griffin III, who did it too, the Giants back in 2012.
Full circle.
Anthony, unfortunately, Brian Burns does not lead the league in sacks right now. He's 3rd, but the defense of the Giants put up a very good performance against the Eagles on Thursday night. Your takeaway?
Yeah, 2 things. Number one, shout out to my nephew for taking me to the game Thursday night.
Nice.
I gave him hell because he's an Eagles fan on the ride home, but yes, shout out to that. And also, me, yes, I called the Giants picking account Scatterball back in our draft show back in April. So yes, I'm taking that W, right?
You can take the victory lap, Ant. Go ahead.
I want Chicago Cubs to find a W tonight. But yes, the Giants defense probably played one of the best defensive games of the season. Got a little help though, because the Philadelphia Eagles have arguably a cheat code in the backfield in Saquon Barkley. The first 2 carries, he got 30 yards. And they kind of went away from him as the game went on. Like he had close to 70 yards in the first half, and they just literally just stopped giving him the football. I mean,
inexplicably.
Inexplicably. And when you think about a Giants team that has struggled stopping the run over the course of this season, even the last 2 years, to not give your best player the ball, it's kind of inexcusable. But you think about the trio, but the defensive line, when they did in the second half, did tighten up. They did limit the yards. When Barkley did get the ball, they were able to minimize Jalen Hurts getting out of the pocket and scrambling and picking up and chunk yards on the ground. The trio of Burns, Thibodeau, and Abdul Carter is really starting to kind of show what they can do when they get in pressure. Brian Burns had 2 sacks on the night. Thibodeau was a big part of slowing down the run game. Abdul Carter is among the league leaders in quarterback pressures. Even though he's not getting the sacks, it's the fact that he's getting in the backfield and it's causing a little havoc that is actually helping the Giants. The linebacker core, what the Eagles try to do, especially in the second and third quarter of the game, they try to line up AJ Brown, Devontae Smith in the slot and try to get them one-on-one with the linebackers. But the linebacker core, led by Bob and Kerry, was able to kind of hold their own, at least limit the damage on a night where Shane Bowden and that defense almost out of necessity had to play more zone, because the corners just aren't gonna be able to slow down either receiver one-on-one. But Cordell Flat obviously made the play of the night with the interception in the red zone. that pretty much took the time of the game. I mean, who knows how the game turned out? The Eagles at least walk away with gets in the end zone, at least walk away with a field goal. But the defense was able to just really shut the Eagles down in the second half, and the offense took over from there. And was able to get some key takeaways. Obviously, the interception, but also the forced fumble late in the fourth quarter that pretty much set up that clock eating drive by the Giants. And without question, this is by far the biggest win of the season. And I know they beat a Charger team that had the number one defense going into that game, and coming off really a bad performance in New Orleans. And see how what's going on around the rest of the NFC East. The Giants are suddenly kind of hanging around a division where no one's running away with anything. I mean, the Cowboys have their issues. The Eagles, might ask my nephew, so as we put it, have their own problems. With ill-timed players-only meetings in the middle of the week, and Washington's kind of in a dogfight right now tonight with Chicago. So by the end of the week, the Giants could be kind of thick of the NFC race, even though they're not exactly off to a great start. And yes, everyone held their breath when Jackson Dart was in not only in the tent, but when they realized Russell Wilson was coming back onto the field. Immediately, my section was chanting for Jameis Winston, like, please let him come in the game. But yes, the defense held their own, and it's just a great performance overall.
All right, so I'm focusing on next week's opponent, which is the Broncos. And it's their star linebacker, Pro Bowler from 2024, and the leader in sacks this year with 8. That's Nick Bonito. And before we start, I'm just going to mention what he did on Sunday because I don't want to mention too much about that game on Sunday at all. But 1 sack, 3 solo tackles, 6 tackles overall. Okay, that's it. I don't want to mention anything else about that. Let's just talk about what Benito's season has been so far. Signed a new contract with the Broncos at the start of September, and good effing God, it's worked out. It's only a 4-year extension worth $106 million, $70 million guaranteed. And he got 7 sacks through his first 5 games, including 2.5 against the Eagles in the game that took him away from the ranks of the undefeateds. Now, it's the second most by any Bronco through 5 games of the season. Elvis Dumervil had 8 in 2009, and he had 17 overall. But Von Miller ended up having more than that a couple of years after that. But he was a second-round pick from Oklahoma, and he's still the 10th highest paid edge rusher in the NFL. He might be underpaid, and he has been just a beast this year for this team, and he really is going to really be someone who is just around there, as it seems like the Dodgers just beat the Brewers. Just wanted to mention that as we move on there. And he really leads a defense who we'll talk about in a second, did not make sure Justin Fields had a good day in any way, shape, or form. Defense overall has 30 sacks. They are on pace for 85 this season. The Broncos' 30 sacks through the first 6 weeks are the most to begin a season in franchise history. 187 sack yards through 6 games. That's the third most among all NFL teams since 2000. The Broncos, as again we'll talk about in a moment, didn't really use the offense as their calling card on Sunday. And even though there's times when they have, their main thing is their defense, and that's what's going to get them through these games. And Patrick Surtain Jr., Surtain II won the Defensive Player of the Year in 2024. And the Broncos might have the leader of the clubhouse in Nick Bonito for 2025.
Maybe.
One more segment to go. Last year, our very own Anthony Strait, on a ridiculously rainy day in September, saw a game between the Broncos and the Jets. Bad offense, 10-9 was the end of the score on a last-second field goal for the Broncos. Well, we decided that game was so good, we sent it to London this past Sunday, where the game was 13-11 in favor of the Broncos. It will not be put on a best of London Games football video on the NFL Throwback YouTube channel anytime soon. The Jets are 0-6, the only winless team in the NFL. London now hates us for bringing us the Jets. So, with that being said, let's dissect this abomination. Jay, what is the literal offensive takeaway from this game? It's offensive.
Yeah, my takeaway is that the offense should be taken away, starting with Justin Fields. As I was watching the utter incompetence of the Jets offense in their 13-11 loss to Denver, where they managed just 9 points on 3 Nick Foles field goals, 2 of them in the first half, despite being gifted with 2 drives starting in Denver territory due to a Troy Franklin fumble at the 32-yard line, then a 72-yard kickoff return by Kene Nwangu to the Denver 24 that I texted Rabbi while watching this version was as painful to watch as the one from the Adam Gase era, to which he replied, watching this game might entitle you to compensation. I said that as a former quarterback, I should get hazard pay for having to watch and cover Justin Fields.
Now, what level of quarterback do you have to be, and what level of former quarterback do you have to be for your level of hazard pay to be? Because college quarterbacks should get a little bit more. Anybody on your level should get just a tiny bit less. But I'm just wanted to know what level of quarterback hazard pay would that be?
This is the bottom of the barrel. This is the extreme level of hazard pay that I feel like to me.
I was going to say, is that like a royalty check?
No, that's several royalty checks. Okay.
Go
on. At halftime, the Jets had run 22 plays for 32 total yards of offense. That's 1.5 yards per play, with just 1 total yard of offense to show for their first 2 drives and -2 net passing yards, courtesy of that last possession of the half, which I will get to in a second, and 2 first downs. Those 32 total yards of offense was the least by any NFL team in any half this season so far. Running back Breece Hall had 9 carries for 24 yards in the first half, 2.7 a carry. Wide receiver Garrett Wilson, who came into the game leading the AFC in receptions with 33 yards, with 382 in touchdowns with 4, had 2 targets, 1 catch, 2 yards. That catch didn't happen until there was 8.5 minutes left in the half. Fields in the first half, 5 of 7, 71.4% completion, but just 17 yards. That's 2.4 yards per attempt. No touchdowns, no picks, 4 sacks, and a 74.1 passer rating. And yet, somehow, they were only down 10-6. But they could have gone into the half with a lead, which leads me to the aforementioned final possession of the first half. Started at their own 16-yard line, moved it to their own 37 with 1:04 left. They gambled, ran a fake punt on 4th and 1 with 1 minute left, converted it to get a new set of downs, but then went ultra conservative with the offense, haul up the middle for 5 on 1st and 10. Fields then gets sacked on 2nd and 5, forcing them to take their final timeout with 37 seconds left on 3rd and 7. Fields hits Josh Reynolds over the middle for 6, leaving them 1 yard short of the line to gain. And then nothing. Yep, the Jets inexplicably let the clock run out without running a play of any kind on 4th down. If that's not glaring evidence that the Jets do not trust Justin Fields to make plays in the passing game, especially when they're in obvious passing situations, I don't know what is. Hell, even when Fields did throw the ball in this game, he averaged 5.5 air yards per attempt, which, for context, would rank 33rd out of 34 qualifying quarterbacks this season. And it only got worse from there. Hall finished with 59 yards on 22 carries, that same 2.7 average. The team finished with 92 yards rushing on 31 carries, 3 flat. Wilson, 6 targets in the second half, but finished with just 3 catches for 13 yards. It's a 4.3 average. But as bad as those numbers are, Fields were sadly and demonstrably worse. He finished 9 of 17, 52.9% completion, 45 yards total, 2.6 yards per attempt, the lowest by any quarterback so far this season in a game. No touchdowns, no picks, a 58.7 passer rating. Field had as many completed passes as sacks, 9. Before their final drive, the Jets offense had gained only 88 yards and had 0 net yards passing. They finished with -10. How's that possible, you ask? Well, Fields gained 45 yards on his 9 completions, but lost 55 on his 9 sacks. Don't need a calculator to do that math. That's the lowest mark in Jets history and the lowest by any team since 1988. The offense finished with 82 total yards on 57 plays. That's 1.4 yards per play. The NFL's worst offense through 5 weeks was Tennessee, and they averaged a whopping 4 yards per play. For next-gen stats, the Jets offense also had 0 explosive plays. Shocked, I know you both are. The last time an offense went an entire game without a single explosive play was 2021. Fields' inability to get rid of the ball in a timely fashion to receivers who appeared to very much be open led to several of the sacks. He averaged 5.66 seconds from snap to sack, which would be the highest rate of any quarterback over the course of his season, according to True Media. 5 of the 9 sacks came on 3rd and 4th down, including one of those by Nick Bonito as the Jets were driving in range for a go-ahead field goal midway through the 4th quarter. The last one came on the Jets' final offensive play as Jonathan Cooper and Brandon Jones met at the quarterback, took Fields down, which pretty much ended the game. Fields was under pressure on 31% of his dropbacks, and while part of that is offensive line protection issues against, I'm going to be low key to make a point here, a pretty decent Broncos pass rush. Part of it is that this is who Fields is. He does not read the field well, is not comfortable putting throws into tight windows, which is kind of a requirement for an NFL quarterback, and does not throw with anticipation. Ready to laugh, guys? Per True Media, before Sunday, only one player in the past 15 seasons had taken at least 9 sacks in a game without completing more than 9 passes. Care to guess who that player was?
That would be Justin Fields.
That's right, Rabbi. Back in 2021 with the Chicago Bears against the Cleveland Browns. And per True Media, Fields had the 3rd worst EPA per dropback of any quarterback in any game to that point this season against the Broncos. He also is the owner of the 2nd worst EPA per dropback in a game this season, week 2 against Buffalo. Now, Aaron Glenn's public defense of his embattled starting quarterback is understandable, replying with, quote, "Come on, man, what kind of a question is that?" when asked after the game if Fields would start next week against Carolina, and following it up by saying, quote, "There are a number of guys that, sometimes this league is like that, and there are guys that have bad games. That doesn't mean you just bench him. Come on, you know better than that." When presented the numbers showing just how bad a game Fields had, he later added, quote, "I don't want to sit there and pin this all on just him." But this is the first time since 2020 the Jets are 0-6 to start a season. Unless something is drastically done and changes with the level of play from the quarterback position, especially in the passing game, changing that 0 to even a 1 on the left side of the Jets' record is going to be a climbing Mount Everest level task, especially if Justin Fields remains QB1. It might be time to turn the offense over to Tyrod Taylor and admit, at least internally, that maybe the Bears and the Steelers knew what they were doing when they let Fields leave.
Okay, first of all, one thing I wanted to say before I want to do is an interesting stat, just because I heard it today. Tennessee, who, by the way, fired their coach, Ryan Callahan, earlier today, is in line for being the first team ever in the history of football with less than 4 yards per play. So that's one. Number 2, it just makes no sense to me defending a guy who is not your future, is not anything close to your future, and is not anyone who is going to be around your team in any way, shape, or form. It just made no sense to me whatsoever. So that being said, Anthony, a lot better on the other side, but when you're 0-6, you still got to talk about the negatives of the losing effort of the defense of this team.
Yeah, here's the thing. This game was so ugly. The next time these two teams played, there should be a viewer discretion is advised. Before a telecast.
No team has scored 20 plus points.
Can we be given an option to opt out of watching?
Just don't watch the game. Just don't watch the game and watch Red Zone. That's all I can tell you.
The NFL should opt out from airing it.
Like at this point, England's like, take them back. Give us the tariffs, please. We'll take it. But yeah, I mean, look, the defense before they even boarded the plane to Jolly Old England had a players only meeting. What is it with players only meetings this week in the National Football League? No one knows. But at least in this case, it actually did work for the Jets. They got their first takeaway the season. They were the last team to not have a takeaway. It was the set fumble, Jay, you just mentioned, that set up a short field. Well, look, they held J.K. Dobbins to 40 yards rushing, under 3 yards a carry. The Broncos rushed only 70 yards total as a team. Bo Nix, after a strong first half, was slowed down. He threw for 174 and the lone touchdown in the game, but he only averaged 6 yards a throw. I mean, yes, it was a mashup of dinking and dunking, or in the case of Justin Fields, going backwards and hoping that Shane Falco would show up at halftime. But if you're a Jet fan, but here's the thing too. The Jets defense, the secondary in particular, did a great job. I mean, I think it's just 15 or 20 in the first half. They held in the 4 of 10 pass in the second half. Uh, Sauce Gardner did a great job of blanketing Cortland Sutton. That took away the primary weapon. One catch, 17 yards for the game. Uh, Jamin Sherwood has become a bit of a cog. Season high 13 tackles. Jarvis Brownlee and Jermaine Johnson provided some defensive spawn. So there's some positive to take away for the Jets defensive efforts. But again, you're 0-6. You just lost a game where you held the opponent to 13 points and your offense did nothing. Sometimes it's not always the X's and O's that come back to bite you. It's the little things, and at this point, it's the little things that's killing the morale around this team. And Rabbi, I think you'll bring this up. You mentioned, and we all saw it watching the game live. Unfortunately, we saw the back and forth between Aaron Glenn and Garrett Wilson before they at halftime, and clearly you're starting to see the frustrations bubble up a little bit. And we saw the defense, the players only meeting, but this whole team is starting to just. I don't know what to make of this. I mean, when you're 0-6, you're 0-6. But some of these losses have been downright dreadful. And in this case, this is another one of those, please don't ever show this game on TV again moments. But if you're the Jets, I don't know I don't know what you do at this point. I mean, you finally got, you
Hi.
literally came in, well, but you can't hide, unfortunately, when you're playing the biggest market in America. But when you finally get one of your best defensive efforts of the season. The Broncos are not a scrub. They're a playoff team from a previous season with a pretty good quarterback, and who, by the way, came into your building and beat you just last season under very ugly circumstances, by the way. This time in dry weather and still able to pull it off. The defense, there is some positives to move forward with, but again, you're 0-6. There's only so many positives and more victories you can kind of bring out of this. And by the way, oh wow, I was just looking. I put my head up. I think Washington blocked the field goal. No, it was yeah, it was waved off. But
Okay.
yeah, yeah, bye. You
Hey,
take over.
yeah, hey guys. I'm just wondering. When we do our year-end show, one of our categories is, the WTF. I'm right now. I'm going to nominate the Jets Broncos game for the WTF award. Okay.
Let's get to some positive stuff and some real offense. The Panthers? Okay, I guess
Right.
that's what we're doing. I guess that's what we're doing.
Grain of
Actually,
salt. It is the Dallas Cowboys defense.
it is, but considering that this is the second week in a row that my player to watch did it, Rico Dowdle has had a pretty damn good 2 week stretch. Now he's a backup, by the way. He's a backup. He's a backup to Chuba Hubbard, who got injured with a calf in week number 4, and he could be back next week, but Panthers coach Dave Canellis has said, we'll see. Why did he say we'll see? Well, he said we'll see because Rico Dowdle had 239 yards of total offense yesterday as the Panthers won 30-27 at the buzzer against the Cowboys. Dowdle, who, by the way, called this the revenge game of revenge games and said he was telling his ex-players what he was going to do to them because he got let go by the Cowboys last year despite having a 1,000-yard season. Now, to be fair, they've done pretty damn well with Javonte Williams in the backfield this year. He's really been a help for this team. But He went for 200 plus yards. The game before that, which means against Miami, which means he became the 7th player in the history of the NFL to have back-to-back 200-yard plus games from scrimmage. O.J. Simpson, Dalvin Cook, Le'Veon Bell, Marshall Faulk, Earl Campbell, Walter Payton. Pretty damn good list to be part of. He also had the most yards from scrimmage ever for any Panthers player, winning that by 2 yards over Christian McCaffrey, who had 237 twice. His talent is obvious. He has been just an amazing player out there. A lot of the team's players know who he is. Out there, it's just a really good move out there. Again, 183 yards for 30 carries, led the team in rushing, 56 yards on a receiving touchdown, led the team in reception. So Hubbard, when he got injured, had 217 yards on 53 attempts in 4 contests earlier this year. Dowdle, who barely didn't play until week 5, is the 3rd leading rusher right now in the National Football League. As you mentioned before, he is just a pain, a beast to take down. And I'm very curious to see what happens with this team. Now, this team, by the way, the Panthers, not as good. Their big wins have been, all their wins have been at home. They won against the Dolphins at home. They won against the Cowboys at home. They destroyed the Falcons at home, who at home themselves beat the Bills tonight. So there's no real rhyme or reason of what the Panthers are doing this year. Bryce Young has been almost like a Jekyll in the first half, a Hyde in the first half of these games, and becomes a big old Jekyll in the second half, and leading his team to comebacks, leading his team to wins. But the Panthers on the road is probably something that the Jets can take advantage of. They're favored, by the way, in this game. Who knew? But so we also haven't mentioned the injury to Garrett Wilson. However, he'll probably not play on Sunday. That is not going to be a big help.
As if things couldn't get any worse for that offense.
Could get worse for that offense. We'll see what happens. But if the Panthers can get Bryce Young passing and Rico Dowdle on the ground, or Chuba Hubbard on the ground, or a combination of both, the Panthers might have something here and could go to above 500 this season.
Yeah,
very weird.
I gotta tell you, I love the nickname his position, the way his position coach described him as a bowling ball of butcher knives. And that description is just kind of stuck in my head, but that literally is the way he runs. And I gotta tell you, I love the character on this kid. He said in his media session coming into this week, coming in ahead of this game, was that, as you said, it was a revenge game. He did not shy away from it. He said the Dallas Cowboys better strap up. When he was asked afterwards, how he managed to do this, he goes, they didn't strap up. Kid's a character.
Yeah.
He can run the ball and he can run his mouth a little bit too, but he's earned the right to.
Yeah, hey, if you back it up, so be it.
Amen.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a very interesting, not a great time for the Jets right now, and hopefully the Giants can bounce back a little bit more. So, for Jake Kaplan and Anthony Strait, my name is Stephen Rabinowitz, and guys, I've decided I'm going to dress up as the DoorDash driver who tussled with Mark Sanchez on Halloween. Any problems with that, guys? Any problems?
Wow!
No?
Man, of all the ways I thought we would get the Mark Sanchez situation into the show, that was not on my bingo card.
No, it was not. That might be
Free space.
No, it was not. That might been hanging around me too much in the last several years, obviously.
YouTube.com/OnTheSportsLines is where you can find all the beautiful things we've done before. Facebook.com/OnTheSportsLines is where you can find all the beautiful things we do live, and on X, Twitter, whatever you call it this week, Jay.
Like and subscribe on those and our Twitter handle, which is at ONTH Sportslines, where you'll find a link to each new show like today's, along with tidbits and nuggets from the world of sports that we think are worth your time to check out. We're halfway through the college football season, and on Sunday, Penn State's James Franklin became the 7th head coach to be fired, and there will likely be a few more by the time the season ends, if not long after. As most Division I head coaches have a buyout clause in their contracts, these supposed institutions of higher learning could wind up paying north of $200 million to coaches who will no longer be working for them. Stuart Mandel, the senior columnist and editor-in-chief of college football for The Athletic, is one of the most respected members of the media covering the sport, and he did a terrific deep dive into the question of just how these schools keep entering into these ridiculous one-sided coaching contracts that cost more than the House settlement salary cap of $20.5 million to extricate themselves from. Franklin's buyout will be north of $45 million. The link to the story is on our Twitter page, and if you're a college football fan, it's very well worth your time to check out.
All right, we will see you. Hopefully, stay dry. Hopefully, it doesn't rain like it has over the last 2 days here in New York. Stay dry, and we'll see you next time for another edition of On the Sports Lines. Good night.
Night,
Good
everybody.
everyone.